Hey, everybody, happy Sunday, and thank you all for joining us today on this wonderful Sunday afternoon, wherever you are. We're happy that you're here, and we're talking about Viking cruising in 2024. We know we're not there just yet, but it's just right around the corner, and we want you prepared. And we've got the privilege of having Michael Consoli, one of the top global producers, actually the top global producer of Viking cruises for many, many years now. He is a true expert. He's also recently voted into the CLIA Hall of Fame, and we're so happy to have him here, and we're going to share some great tips. It's actually going to be, don't make these mistakes on your Viking cruise this upcoming year, because we want to make sure that you're prepared. So, Michael, we're going to get him in here. Happy Sunday, Michael.
Hey, John. Happy Sunday to you, too.
Yeah, and thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I know it's raining where we are, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely is raining in Georgia today.
Yeah, and Michael is also so gracious to actually come up with a prize package for us today. We've never done this. It's a feature of the software we have, but we're pretty excited about it. So I wanted to get that. I made a comment down, but all you have to do is enter planmycruise.com. Shoot, I messed that up there. Actually, up that. Let's see. Yeah, this one. Enter hashtag planmycruise just in the comments below, and that'll actually enter you for a prize. So once again, hashtag planmycruise, and you'll be automatically entered. Now, there's a few little stipulations. You actually have to be able to be visible. So, when you enter live stream through YouTube, it knows your name. If you do it through Facebook and you're logged into a public page or group, it knows your name. But if you come through the Facebook group, the Viking Cruises Facebook group, which many of you might have, you actually have to give it permissions. Otherwise, it'll just say Facebook user. And we wouldn't know who you are. So we couldn't give you the prize. So just make sure I put that little stipulation in a couple places there. So that's what we're dealing with here. And once later in the live stream, we'll do a drawing. It'll be really, really cool. And Michael's going to tell us about the prize then. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah. So just make sure you put in hashtag planmycruise into the comments. But also we want to see your questions too.
Yes, that's like we also want to. We're going to go through the list of different mistakes that you shouldn't be making this year, this upcoming year. But we also want you to do is ask your questions below, right down there. Make sure you ask them, and then we'll get to those shortly. So, wow, 2024 is almost here, Michael. And what's going on with Viking? Any new things that just come to mind? I know we haven't talked yet about this.
Yeah, well, I think we just opened. I think Viking just opened 2026 River itineraries.
Wow.
So, which is really an indication of how well 2024 and 2025 are selling, because typically Viking doesn't open a season until they have a certain percentage of sell-through on the seasons before. So yeah, definitely, the demand for 2024 and 2025 travel, we keep talking about that, is really there. So they actually have opened, some 2026 sailings as well.
And Viking is just, it's never ceased to amaze me. And I know we've talked about this on and off camera, just the growth and how literally the demand sometimes is making them build more ships. And that's just happened. They just announced it this past week that they're adding 10 more river ships to Europe. So just incredible that they're not just building one, they're not just building two, like some brands would start out with. They're just going to do 10 more right off the rip, right?
Yeah, 10 more ships. So, and I mean, if anybody's been on the river lately, they can see that the ships are definitely full and, busy. So yeah, we're excited to see that.
And I'm sure you're actually to blame for some of this, because as the largest seller of all Viking cruises in the world, these are a lot of your clients.
Yeah, and so we usually have somebody traveling. In fact, I was just traveling with a group last week on the river and for the holiday markets, and I every time we saw a ship, I looked up to see if we had somebody on there, and we would have a guest, and I would catch up with them somehow. So yeah, it was kind of fun.
Yeah. So how was the snow? I know Europe had some record snowfall, and I've never seen that much snow on a Christmas market, but it looked really cool, because it was very authentic, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it was, so we were definitely affected by the snow in Germany. Our flight was delayed by like 9 hours because of the heavy snow, but it did make for a very beautiful Christmas markets cruise.
Yeah, wow. So I know we got a bunch of comments here. Oh, well, we've got a lot of entries coming in here. So we're going to go right over here. Yeah, we've got 14 entries so far. So let's see how this works. Oh, yeah. I hope you can see that. It's showing 14 entries. So if you haven't already done it, please join everybody else and put hashtag Plan My Cruise. And we really appreciate it. And we're going to have a fantastic prize that we'll tell you about towards the end. So I guess we need to get into it. These are mistakes that we don't want anybody to make in the upcoming year, and we're going to get into it here. Let's see. 1 second here. We've got. So the first one is pick the right time of year.
Yeah, so a lot of guests really, when they look at a schedule for sailing, they choose it based on price, and instead of looking at like the weather, the crowds, whether or not there's like with river, whether or not there's going to be the the issue of a water level issue, something like that. So, I mean, really what we do is we help our guests determine the best time of the year to go. Every itinerary is different. Every sailing is different. It's really important to pick the right time of the year. If you go too early in the season, a lot of what you would normally see will be closed. If you go too late in the season, it could be too cold. It could be a rainy time. It could be a crowded time. It all depends. So it's really important to have somebody help you choose the right time of year to go, and basing it on price is really a mistake in a lot of cases, just because there's the reason why the price is lower at certain times of the year, and you're sacrificing something at that time of the year to have a lower price. So, it is really important to take all of that into consideration and see what would be the best time of the year for the trip that you're looking at.
And I know the next one is a real loaded question, not a question, but a statement that you've made many times during different live streams. We've done actually live streams just on this, is the necessity to select and use Air Plus.
Yeah, because without Air Plus with Viking, what happens is you'll be assigned a schedule 90, 120, 160 days prior to departure, and then you're just kind of stuck with what they give you. Without Air Plus, you really don't have a say as to how the flights are routed, where your seats are on the plane, that kind of thing. So having Air Plus and working with, a qualified agent to help you find the right flights, the right schedule, the right connection time. The Air Plus allows us to help our guests find the right flights for that trip. And, a lot of the things that we read, I hear this every day, from the Facebook page. People are like, oh, well, I read, so-and-so, they had a bad connection, or they didn't, or they had Air Plus, but they really didn't utilize it to the fullest extent to get what they needed. We can help our guests utilize Air Plus to get the flights that really fit best under the cruise line's contracted rates, because we do have that limitation of working within the cruise line's air contracts with the airlines. But the Air Plus allows us to do that, as early as 10 months prior. We really feel the ideal time to do it is about 8 months prior. But it is really vital into securing the right flights for the trip that you're going on, the right connection times. And we help our guests, again, find the right schedule. We know what airports to go through, which airports to avoid, how long you need, all of that stuff. So Air Plus gives us a tool to help them find the right flights.
Okay. And how much does that normally cost extra? I know we've gotten into that before.
Yeah, it is currently $100 to $150 per person, depending on the itinerary. There are a limited number of itineraries that are $150 just because of the airlift that go in and out of those cities, but the majority are $100 per person.
And this kind of leads up to what you were saying is using a qualified travel agent actually can make a world of a difference no matter who it is, right?
Absolutely. It's, a travel agent like myself is your advocate. There's somebody to help you, navigate the process, picking a cruise cabin, picking the right itinerary, all the things we just talked about. And we act as your advocate. So we are the safety net when you have a problem, when there's a challenge that comes up with the booking, or a challenge that comes up with a flight schedule, or while you're traveling, we are the safety net to help you get to where you're going.
And I know we actually, one of the most touching live streams we've done was when you talked about, things happen in life, and, it's one thing to call 800 number, but it's another thing to call someone that's considered a friend, that like yourself, that actually is an advocate to help deal with things in case of medical emergencies, life problems like deaths in the family and things like that. And I know that kind of led into another thing as far as we don't have it listed here today, but just cruise insurance and just being properly prepared, all around. and having that advocate. So if something happens, and you said you get phone calls 24/7, right?
We do. So I do take calls personally for emergency calls, and in the middle of the night, our phones are always manned for that type of thing, and I handle the majority of those myself. And it's something that we are able to help the guests navigate in an emergency, trying to get to where they're going, and giving them, the right tools to solve the problem. And we have, a great relationship with the lines to be able to get them a solution relatively quickly. It is an unfortunate thing when it happens, but there's nothing like feeling like you have no control when that happens, and we help take that control back and get the guest a solution.
Right. And if you're interested in work with Michael in the future, I know we do these live streams and people are interested in how to make contact with them, because it's great when you can actually hear from someone directly as far as how their services are and why they're important. I'm going to put his information right down below as well. And make sure you enter that hashtag Plan My Cruise. We really appreciate it. And so you can be entered. Moving on to the next thing, Michael, it's going to schedule enough time between connecting flights. And I got to tell you, I got stuck in all places of Atlanta when I didn't live in Atlanta area, coming back from a Viking cruise.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's something that we hear from guests all the time. They look at the total travel time and they're like, I don't want to be traveling for, 16 hours, 14 hours. But the connection times are very important. I have people that email me and say, I want to take this schedule because I'm only going to be traveling for 12 hours. And it has them, with a connection time of 54 minutes somewhere. And the guest doesn't realize that connection times like that are really way too close. We really work very hard to make sure that our guests have at least 2 hours in any connecting city. Some cities we would request longer time just to make sure that they get to where they're going. But it's not just them that we have to get from plane to plane. The luggage also has to have time to go through the system and get to the other flight. And when those connection times are too short, it can result in lost luggage, delayed luggage. The guests can miss their flight. And all these airports that you connect through, Frankfurt, Munich, London, Amsterdam, Paris, Zurich, Vienna, they all are very different in the processes that they have, the length of time that it takes. So it's really important that you have somebody assist you with making sure that the connection times that you have and the flights that you have are reasonable and that you can actually make them. And a lot of times there are certain cities we want to plan to make sure the guest has a backup plan. If there is a delay, a flight cancellation, that kind of thing. Those are the things that we help our guests navigate. But making sure that there's enough time between flights is really, really important. And it is a mistake that many people make because they're just looking at the overall travel time and not the actual connection time that they need to have in those cities.
Right. And, as you're talking, I'm thinking, about the previous thing we covered about using a travel agent. Some travel agents charge fees and whatnot, but your actual services don't cost anything. So it actually can help these different people actually book their vacations and not worry about all these little pitfalls because they're not aware of it. They don't do this every day, right? But if they can actually not have these pitfalls, and it doesn't cost them any extra money. So just want to let you all know, folks, Michael's services do not cost any extra. Some travel agents, I've actually had dinner with them where they'll say, I charge a fee. Well, he doesn't. So
yeah, we never charge a fee. I never charge a fee for my services. I think it's very important. And there are a lot of agencies that do charge fees. I feel like what we build with our clients is a relationship, over time. And that's really not based on charging our guests a fee. So it's very important to us.
And here's one of the most important things, I imagine. Do not overpack.
Yeah. A lot of people overpack, but I have to tell you, in the exact opposite direction, before we talk about this, I'm always overly impressed with these guests I see on the Facebook page that are like, I'm packing 14 days in a carry-on bag. That would be totally impossible for me, but I have great admiration for those that are able to do it. But it is really important not to overpack and to really make sure you choose the right items to take on your cruise. Most of the time, you're going to have laundry service or a laundrette on board the ship to utilize so that you don't have to overpack. And I know many people are going to say, I don't want to do laundry while I'm on vacation. And I would agree with you, but you would always have the option to send it out. And the pricing for laundry service on Viking ships is very, very reasonable. So even if you did pay for it, it would be pretty reasonable. So yeah, I think a lot of people think they have to have an outfit in the morning, an outfit for the afternoon, and an outfit for dinner. That's really not true. Most of the time, you just need to have something casual throughout the entire day, and maybe something to make it just a little bit more dressy for dinner. But there is no, the sailings are all country club casual, so there are no jackets, no dresses that are required in the dining room at any time. So it's really important that you don't overpack.
I agree. I've seen so many different people, talk about it on the groups, and you just can't make everybody's got different ideas of what's important and what's okay to them, and then there's the reality. Once you get on the river cruise and everybody goes to these tours in the afternoon, they come back and you walk in and everybody goes completely right to dinner. So it's like, oh, the message board didn't say that, So here's another one: not booking a pre or post extension. And I know this is a big deal for some, because people that want to do it, and some people just might not know about it. So what's your take on that?
It's another thing that we really highly recommend, and it's not necessarily booking a pre or post extension as much as it is making sure you have a buffer before or after the trip. Especially at the beginning of the cruise, to make sure you have a day or two to buffer. So whether it's a deviation to accommodate that independently booked buffer, or it's to accommodate the extension. The extensions really might give you the opportunity to see a couple more cities, right? So some of the extensions that Viking offers, like Prague, or Paris, in some cases on some of the different rivers, are going to give you the opportunity to see a city that's not part of the original itinerary. And so doing the extension, is going to give you more of an experience. But the real benefit of an extension, especially the pre-extension, is to have that buffer. And there are cities where those buffers are really necessary, and there are cities where they might be less necessary, and that's something we can help the guests navigate. But for instance, for all the changes with where the ships are going to dock and have been docking in Venice, I do really think that Venice is really an important extension to have, because they're going to move you from one city to the other in order to board the ship. So definitely, it depends on the itinerary. It depends on the guest. It depends on the experiences they've had until that point. I have a lot of guests that have been to Venice many times, so it wouldn't be a draw for them to be there. But we want to make sure that the guest has a buffer, whether that buffer is a couple of extra days before the cruise, or if it's built into the itinerary where Viking overnights in some of these cities. That's really what the benefit of having that extension is. But it also gives the guests the opportunity to see a couple of extra cities that they wouldn't necessarily have time to see.
Right. And I think it also sets the tone for the vacation too, where you're less stressed out, where you're literally can kind of stop and relax, get a good night's sleep, get over your jet lag maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. To have that time to just get over the travel that we just talked about, right? 12 to 14 hours.
It can be a lot.
It can be.
So, I want to talk about this too. Must-dos while on board. I think people, I know there's a lot of times there's talk about restaurant reservations, and then there's excursions, and people can get really stressed out about this. And as an expert, is there some little tips that you can, that you tell your clients that kind of must-dos that they should do, or even things for the room, little tidbits, that things that you might do?
Yeah, it's really, I think, important to have a day to explore the ship, especially when you first get on, especially the ocean ships. Obviously the river ships are very small, so you don't really need that day. But I do like to have, when I get on board a ship, I like to have some extra time to go off and explore the ship and find my way around, understand where places are. Having sold the product for so long, I have a very good recollection of where everything is on board these ships. But to a new cruiser or somebody that's not been on the ship before, that's something that I think you really need to give yourself time to do when you first board the ship, is to go and explore, tour the spa, see where the restaurants are, find out, where the maitre d' is so you can make those extra reservations, that type of thing. So that's definitely something that you want to do. Definitely on the Viking ocean ships, you don't want to miss Mamson's. That's something that some people they go on the whole trip and they're like, oh my gosh, I never even went up there. But Mamson's is the little cafe that's themed after the owner's tourist kitchen tours mother's kitchen. It's named after his mother and has a replica of the china that he had as a child in his home. So it is definitely an experience that is not to be missed. And a lot of my clients come back and say, "Oh, I forgot to do that." You definitely want to do that. Take advantage of the coffee bar on deck one. They make complimentary fresh espressos, cappuccinos, lattes, all of that. Definitely not to be missed. Time in the winter garden is definitely not to be missed on the ocean ships. The afternoon tea is something that's not to be missed. It's very important to do so. And then the river ships, the experience in the afternoon when you're sailing down the river of sitting on the aquavit terrace and seeing all those the scenery going by. That's something that I think is really important. We love the automatic coffee machines on the river ships. So those are definitely something I don't think is not to be missed, but is absolutely necessary to get started in the morning. So those are just a few things.
I love their cookies.
Yeah, the little cookie station. Yeah, very nice.
So good.
I don't know, John. People are always going to think that all we talk about is food. So
we've already cleared that up a long time ago. Both the time we have food problems. So
yeah, exactly.
So tipping and gratuities. I know people get stressed out about this. Is there some advice that you give your clients about this?
Yeah, well, the gratuities for the staff on board are obviously set and are going to be charged to your shipboard account every day. I think it's important to know how much you're paying for those gratuities each day. And if you feel that the staff on board, goes above and beyond, and I have to say the majority of my guests do think they go above and beyond, then, you should recognize that even further with an additional gratuity. But the standard gratuity you will pay every day on board the ship. And, if somebody goes above and beyond, you would definitely want to recognize that. We get a lot of questions about touring, about gratuities and tips on the tours for the bus drivers, things like that. $1 or $2 per person or euros per person for the guide. If you feel like the guide went above and beyond, then you certainly can give more than that. The same thing for the bus drivers. They are, it's not expected, but it is definitely appreciated, I'm sure. Tipping in Europe and other parts of the world is not as, I would say, generous as is expected in the United States. Especially for like restaurants and bars, things like that. It's really something that you have to decide what you're comfortable with. But it is, again, it's not required, but it's definitely something that you would want to do if the tour guide, the bus driver, has provided an excellent experience for you.
Yeah, and I hear this asked a lot on the group. Some people even debate it. Does it have to be in euros if the country has euros, or does it have to, if you're in Budapest, do you need to have the money that's for there, and so on and so forth? Because sometimes you'll cover so much ground on a particular voyage.
Yeah.
And I've got my opinion, but I think that I'd like to hear yours if you don't mind dipping in this pool.
Well, out of respect to the people that are providing the service, you want to give it to them in the currency of the country that you're in, right? But they're going to accept it in whatever currency you give to them. They will happily take it. It varies in different parts of the world. Hungary, for instance, they take U.S. dollars, they take euros, and they take the forint, which is their local currency. But out of respect to the person that you're giving the gratuity to, if it's possible to give it to them in local currency, that's what I would recommend. But I'm sure that they would be happy with a gratuity in whatever currency you want to provide it in.
Right. So if you only have a euros on you because of the situation you're in, they're going to be fine. Or even a dollar, they're going to be happy either way, rather than not getting one at all. Correct.
Absolutely. Right.
Okay, that's going to one of most of our tips right now. If you have any questions, like I said, here's where we're going to go into our question and answer soon. So please enter your comments. If there's something we didn't cover in this initial list that you want some advice or a tip on, please bring it up. We'd love to cover it for you. That's what makes it so fun, the interactiveness. And Michael, of course, loaded with knowledge, and this is the time we want to extract it from him, during this conversation. So I want to also ask this, though, is there any special cruise rates or deals? Because I know stuff's been happening fast, with the Viking.
Yeah, I mean, there are some special rates right now. If people want to go last minute on Antarctica, there are some definite deals for January and February of 24, even some deals for the end of 24 with Antarctica. But, 2024, as we talk about many times, is already very well sold for them. So there are some offers for free air on certain itineraries. And that's something that, we'd be happy to go over with the guests if they're interested. But usually it's the last minute deals, like in the next 60 days, there might be some opportunities there. What we're seeing, as we talked about at the beginning of the live stream, is that 2024 and 25 are selling so well that they're introducing River for 2026. So my advice about getting the best deal is to work with an agent that knows how to save you money on the product that you're looking at, and also book early. There's no caveat really to booking early except to secure, the best price, the best location, the best dates, that kind of thing. It's so funny that I have guests that call me, and they're like, oh, I want to book for September, October 24. And they're so surprised at what little availability there is. So, right now, the earlier, the better.
Yeah, and people are getting kind of mad about that, not just Viking clients, but just in general overall. People are like, how is that possible? And why are these rates so high? I've known people, there's a lot of new ships coming out everywhere, especially the biggest cruise ship in the world's coming out this year by another brand. And the rates are very, very high. People are just upset, but of course, all prices are up and demand is up. And that's some basic economics there. It's the prices are going to go higher, right?
Yeah, I mean the demand is there, and I don't know. The great example is there was an article about a week ago in one of the major newspapers about the demand for premium economy seating on flights. That the airlines are getting, really great pricing. They're getting a great return on premium economy because the demand is there for that type of travel. We see more people traveling. We see more people wanting to make sure they travel comfortably. So premium economy and business class seats are selling. And we see that with the same thing with the River and the ocean products that, that we sell. The demand is there. And so my advice, again, is to book early.
Wow. So we're going to check in. Like I said, if you haven't already done, enter in the comments, no matter where you're watching, #PlanMyCruise. And we're going to take a look here. Oh, we've got 22 entries. So you have a chance of 1 out of 22. We're only going to give 1 prize away today. But was it 22, right? Yeah, 22. So before long, I'm going to hit that draw button and we're going to be able to see this. So this is pretty cool. You've got to stick around, and it's only for people that are watching. So we can't don't call me in a month and say, hey, I hit the hashtag in. So we're only doing 1 drawing while it's live. But I think this is cool. So thanks again for Michael. And if you haven't already done, please give me a subscribe. If you're watching through YouTube, hit that like button. I see like a O button, O thing there at the top there. I don't know, or I'm not sure what that is, but please give us a subscribe, maybe a heart to cover that one thing. But yeah, so we got the questions here. Let's see. We're going to go here. Wow, so many things here. Yeah. Yvonne Estrada, she was looking forward to the show. Thank you. Stuart's checking in. Hello, back to you, Stuart. We appreciate you watching again.
Hey, Stuart, great to see you're here again.
And Stuart checked in with the hashtag, so he's entered. We really appreciate that. It's great to see that. I think this is so cool. I've wanted to do this for a while. So did Yvonne, Joseph, Sharon, Kenneth. Oh, Kenneth did a partial one. Kenneth, you better fix that there. So you need to do the full Plan My Cruise hashtag. Okay, so we have a Facebook user checking in here and is asking about how to plan included flights, like with business class seating, I'm assuming here.
Yeah, so I mean, Viking offers air on most itineraries. They offer, pricing for economy, premium economy, and business class. So if you're looking for business class seating, you have that option with Viking on the majority of itineraries. There are some exceptions to that where they do not offer anything but economy. Most of those are going to be U.S. departures or itineraries that start in the Caribbean and maybe and in Europe. Sometimes those do not include or don't offer business class air. But the best way to plan the air through Viking and get business class seating is to purchase those seats outright from the cruise line. And we get a lot of questions about how to upgrade seating and things like that. And that's like we could fill an entire live stream on questions about airline seating. But generally, the seats are not upgradable. The seats purchased through Viking are not upgradable with miles with your frequent flyer program. They have to be purchased. So you can upgrade usually on the airline's website to Comfort Plus or extra legroom seating, but to upgrade to premium or business, you would actually have to purchase those seats through the cruise line directly. Occasionally, the airline will offer an upgrade, a paid upgrade, much closer to your departure date. But usually that's not the case. Only a few airlines do that. And usually those that do, you're basically just paying the difference between what you purchased through Viking and what you would have purchased through the airline. So the best way to secure business class seats is going to be from the very beginning and purchase the business class air upgrade through Viking directly.
Wow, Michael, I was looking at some of the questions and they're really, really good. And thank you for that great answer. So Kathy West asked a great question. She says, Michael, which river did you take? She's thinking about a Christmas market cruise on the Danube in 2025. No.
Yeah, and I did see earlier that somebody else asked which was my favorite Christmas markets. I've been probably on 6 or 7 different Christmas markets.
Yeah, Stuart raised that. Yeah.
So I have to say my favorite was probably on the Rhine. What used to be the Rhine Getaway and now is Christmas time on the Rhine is a very nice itinerary. I like the Rhine Christmas markets. The itinerary that I just came back from was basically the romantic Danube, or what they call Christmas on the Danube. It was a really great itinerary that included an overnight in Vienna, as well as a visit to Passau and Regensburg. Those are some of my favorite Christmas market cities, especially Vienna. It has some really, really beautiful Christmas markets, and quite large. So it was a great trip, but my favorite is probably the Rhine.
Regensburg is so cool. I just want to live in one of those places down there. The buildings. It's like something out of a fairy tale.
I know, 100%.
And Vienna is just so palatial with the city streets, and just it's something out of a book, right?
Yeah, it really is. And Passau is one of my favorite cities too. It's a great little shopping city. There's great little cafes and restaurants. The oldest pipe organ church cathedral is there in Passau. Definitely not to be missed. It's a really nice itinerary. There are no bad Christmas market cruises. They are all great. I just happen to favor the Rhine. But we had a great time. I had a group of 60 with me on the Danube. They had a fantastic time. It was a really nice itinerary. The highlight being those 3 cities I mentioned: Vienna, Passau, and Regensburg.
That's a nice group. Very good. And here's one. Cecilia is asking, based on the following of some Viking Facebook groups, it seems like river levels are becoming more problematic. I can't talk today, Michael. Are there rivers and or times of the year that minimize these issues?
I mean, typically, I would say that they're not becoming more problematic. I think that there's just been some river cruise issues this year, later in the season than we typically have. Most of the time, we see water level issues in July and August. I encourage my guests to avoid those times for that very reason. But it is unusual to see them later in the season. But Viking is very adept at handling those challenges when they come up, and because they have so many ships, they are able to do what we call a ship swap, to take one guest from one ship and move them to the other and vice versa. As John has mentioned, we are the #1 producing agency in the world for Viking 9 years in a row. So we have a lot of people on the rivers a lot of the time. And we have had very little impact at the end of this year with water level issues. So I think it's just something that is not really predictable, but the height of the water level season issues are usually in July and August. And again, that goes back to one of the other topics that we talked about earlier in the season. Earlier in the call. That's why you see, those prices in that time of the year lower than other times of the year.
Okay. And Yvonne's asking, even though I have Viking Air Plus, I had to pay extra to select my economy seats with KLM. Is this normal?
It can be normal. It depends really on the ticket that's issued for the flights that you have. So usually we only see that if you want to have seats that are closer to the front of the plane, or if you're looking for seats to be assigned on the inter-Europe flights, meaning the flights maybe from Amsterdam to Budapest or Budapest to Amsterdam, something like that. Those flights that happen intra-Europe, you may have to pay for that seat assignment if you want it before you get to the airport. But generally on the over-the-water flights, a seat assignment with the contracted air through Viking is usually included, unless, as I said, you're looking for something that what we call a preferred seat. If those preferred seats that are closer to the front of the plane, then you would pay extra for that. But typically, we only see that on the intra-Europe flights.
Thank you. And we have a Facebook user from the groups. You're going on the Eastern Capitals River the 31st of August. Is this a good time of year? Is there any way to find out past missed days or ports due to low river levels for research?
So there is not a way to find out, past or missed days or ports due to low river issues from past sailings. I don't think there's any place that you would be able to find that information. We typically September is a really good time, and the water levels are typically pretty good in September. So the chances of you having a water level issue are lower simply because that is not typically a time that we see them on the lower Danube. But it's a really nice itinerary. I know you're going to love it, and I think you've picked a good time to go.
Right. So Karen's asking, should tour guides be paid in dollars on the South Pacific cruise?
Again, if you're, it is one of those things where it is, generally appreciated if you give them tips in local currency, but they'll be happy to have your gratuities in U.S. dollars if that's what you have.
Right. And let's see here. So Kathy West is asking, she's going on the Iceland, Greenland Viking in August. Have heard that bugs might be a problem. Is bug spray a must? That's a good question. You never know, right?
Yeah, it is a good question. I mean, typically, we see that more in Alaska than in Iceland and Greenland. I was in Iceland in August and we didn't have any problems at all. But yes, I would recommend it. It really has to do with how warm it gets there and with standing water, and it can create a bug problem. So that's why somebody probably recommended that to you. So I would, definitely recommend traveling with that in your kit. So.
Right. And there's a Facebook user, and I'm not sure if you can see this or not. They're asking various questions, but I'm not really sure what they're asking because it's not really clear, but I'll just put it up here. This be our first cruise, just my husband and I. Not sure best place in the boat to be. I guess the question is, what boat are you going on? Because there's different vessels. I mean, everything from Expedition River, there's different river vessels. So you'll have to let us know a little more about that, but we appreciate your thing. And we also have people, Facebook users. I don't think the system's going to take this entry because, like I said, it has to be authenticated. We have to see your name, where your name would be, and your face. Otherwise, we have no idea who you are. So I don't think that's going to work. So please authenticate, or you have to give StreamYard permission. And let's see. And this other user is talking about, I guess there's been different issues with guaranteed cabins, oversold cat cruises. Has this ever been an issue with Viking?
So typically they are able to resolve the issue. That issue that I think that he's referring to, he or she is referring to with, I think was a Royal Caribbean issue. Viking does does like other cruise lines do. They do sell guaranteed cabins, which the term basically says they guarantee you a cabin in that category or better. That's where the term guaranteed comes from. And in the situation where they're oversold, they make offers to the guests in other cabins in order to open those cabins up until they have space. But and we see that happen. And I have to tell you that the guests that take advantage of those offers are very happy with the offers that they get. We've never had a client be denied boarding or not get a cabin that was sold at a guarantee. So, the situation that I think you're referring to in the 20 years that I've done business was the first time I've ever seen that. I also think it would be the last time that we've seen it too. So,
yeah, I just wanted to lightly touch on it, more focused on Viking rather than the other brand, but because I've never heard of anything like that ever.
Yeah.
I don't even understand how it actually could happen.
Yeah. I think that it was a situation that either was pretty unique to that particular ship, but it's nothing that we've seen. There's been a lot of discussion about it in the travel agent community, and there's it's not something that I think that would happen again.
Good. And it's
a really good opportunity for me to touch on purchasing a guarantee rather than an assignable cabin. This is something that I think people need to be aware of. You take a guaranteed cabin on a ship. A guaranteed cabin means that the cruise line does not have an assignable cabin at that time to assign you when you make the reservation, but they guarantee you that they will provide a cabin in the category that you've chosen or better. 90% of the time we see those cabins assigned in that category that they've chosen. It's a way for them to fill in the blanks when they have cancellations. But it is on any other cruise line, it can be a risky proposition simply because you can end up with a cabin that is obstructed view or something like that. Viking really doesn't have any obstructed view cabins, so that wouldn't be a problem on them. However, if you're somebody that is concerned about location, you need to be midship. You want to make sure that you lower the motion. You don't want to be at the front of the ship or the back of the ship. You have mobility issues. You need to be close to an elevator. A guaranteed cabin is not the right choice for you, regardless of what the pricing may be. We would encourage you to choose a cabin category or a sailing that has an assignable cabin in those instances. So it's very important that you work with somebody that you trust and that will help you lead you through the process to make sure that that's the right choice for you. Guaranteed cabins can be risky only from the standpoint of those cabins can be assigned anywhere on the ship. And sometimes a guest who may not need a handicapped cabin can be assigned a handicapped accessible cabin, which is something that would not make them happy. So we would lead the guest through the process to make sure that they were making the right choice for them. A guarantee is not always the right choice when you're looking at a sailing.
Thank you. And I don't know if this is kind of an interesting question, but does Viking Insurance only pay vouchers or can you get cash? That's I'm not really sure if that's.
Yeah, I think it's a clear question to me because we get it a lot. The guest, if you cancel under a covered reason with the Viking TripMate policy, if you cancel under a covered reason, you're going to be issued a refund from the insurance company. So typically, if you cancel in penalty with the cruise line keeps the penalty. The insurance company is responsible for giving you that money back based on your claim. If the claim is a legitimate claim or is a covered reason, you'd be issued a refund from the insurance company once you go through the claims process. If you're canceling under the cancel for any reason clause in that policy with TripMate, you're issued a voucher. And that's the difference between whether or not you get a cash refund or you get a voucher for a future cruise.
And I know we've had a whole live stream on this too, as far as insurance coverage goes. And you actually recommend your clients a proprietary plan that you have just for your clients, correct?
Yeah, we have a third-party policy that we offer through Allianz that's written specifically for us and has benefits that are specific to our policy and cannot be purchased directly through them. The most, or I guess the biggest benefit would be it can be purchased at final payment and still cover pre-existing conditions instead of having to be purchased at deposit or within a few days of deposit. So that's a real benefit for most people. It allows them the time to review the policy and make an educated decision. But yes, we have a third-party policy that is proprietary to us that we offer our guests.
Right. And Barbara Wilcox is wondering if will Viking be introducing a new ocean itinerary in the near future?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of very creative itineraries from Viking like we have in the past. Most recently we had that Malta, Morocco, and the Med itinerary, which is a 15-day itinerary, round trip Barcelona. It sold in a matter of weeks. They had 4 sailings and it sold out in a matter of weeks. So yes, we will always see very creative itineraries, I think, from the Viking team. They are masters at creating unique itineraries, overnighting in certain ports where other lines do not. And that is a real benefit to a Viking cruise for sure. I do have to say, John, I see Mary Beth Selbichka is on here and did the hashtag Plan My Cruise. Thank you very much, Mary Beth. Mary Beth is also, like Stuart, already one of my clients, and we're grateful that you're here, Mary Beth. Thanks for watching the live stream today.
I have to find her here. Let's see. There's so many that appreciate it. It's funny. The comments are huge because there's so much interaction with the entries and stuff. Let's see here. That's great. And here's another Facebook user from the group. They're asking, why does Viking charge a deviation when they don't provide transportation from the airport to the ship?
Yeah,
I thought they did, right?
So I think what he or she is asking is that when you don't take the extension through the cruise line, or you want to deviate the air to accommodate independent travel, why do they charge a fee for the air deviation? And that's simply because they want to encourage you to book that extension through them. This is something that all the cruise lines do when you purchase air packages through them. They want to encourage the guest to purchase the extension or the additional nights through the cruise line. And so they charge a deviation fee to change that travel date to a date that the guest is going to do independent travel. It is a benefit to keep the air and the extension with the cruise line so that you keep those transfers. But yes, it is industry practice that all the cruise lines do. They charge a deviation fee when you break the service that you have with the cruise line to do independent travel.
And Joanne is checking in. She says the Rhine is the best Christmas markets.
And Joanne would know. She's a very good client of mine. Travels many, many times with me and with Viking. And I agree with Joanne. The Rhine is my favorite.
And while you were talking about that last question about, we were talking about new itineraries, right? As I've seen that question posed more and more recently. I think that people are saying they've done a lot of different things. They want more options. I've never seen that before in all the years we've been doing this. There seems to be the demand's so high that you have repeaters that are actually wanting new places to go with this brand, which is fascinating to me because I know they have a lot.
Yeah, I just think the Viking client is very, very loyal to that product. And so, they love the no kids, the no casinos, the no smoking. They love that. They love the all balcony ships on the ocean product. I think they have a unique proposition and people really, really love it. I'm very grateful to the loyalty that the guests that travel with us have to us. So I can imagine that Viking is also very grateful that the loyalty that those guests have to them as well. And I think that's why you see that question a lot because they've done the Mediterranean Odyssey, they've done the British Isles, they've done the Viking homelands. We see guests that have 18, 19, 20, 25, 27 cruises with Viking. And so they're always looking for a new itinerary. And that is why Viking is always introducing something new. So yes, they are very innovative in the itineraries that they offer. And I think that they will continue to keep people engaged that way.
And what a good problem to have as a company, right?
Exactly.
But I know the logistics are just incredible just to set up something new like that, right?
It is. Yeah, I think so. Especially when they are trying to design itineraries that have overnights that give guests, longer times in port. So.
And David checked in and said, Michael was able to get me some great premium economy flights, business class for my cruise in May of 2024.
Yeah. Thanks very much for the shout out, David. I appreciate it. It was our pleasure to do it for you. Thank you.
And Pat is checking in. Thanks, Pat. From Facebook, any future plans for cruises in Africa and China?
I think that we're going to see a return to China very, very shortly. In the next few weeks, I think we'll see some itineraries for China. Africa, I am certain that they are working on, but I don't know that there's anything in the works right away, but I do know that we're going to see a lot more Asia itineraries with a focus on China.
So Brian's asking a question. He's saying that he booked a cruise, paid in full, then the price dropped, and he's looking for them to refund the difference, which I don't know if that's even possible once final payment. Most usually when final payment's made on a cruise, you usually can't go in and ask for the difference. Is that correct?
It is correct. I mean, you do have the opportunity to cancel and rebook. So if you're outside of the penalty period, which is outside of 120 days, and this is general, if you're on a 35-day or longer sailing, the penalty policy is different. But in general, their policy is outside of 120 days. If there's a price drop, you can cancel and rebook to take advantage of that price drop. So if you're outside of that 4 months of departure, you still have the opportunity to cancel and rebook the entire cruise. Now, just like other cruise lines, once you're within that penalty period, if you do have a promotion that comes up, I mean, typically those promotions are just last minute promotions to fill the ship. And like all the other cruise lines that we deal with, they really don't make any accommodations for that. But the majority of the time, that also, the benefit to booking early is to getting the cabin that you want. So I don't know what your specific situation is, but if you're within that 4-month penalty period and there's a promotion, generally there's really nothing that can be done. But outside of that 120-day period, you can cancel and rebook and take advantage of that special offer.
And Cecilia, thank you. And Cecilia is saying she booked through AirPlus business class, layover in London, 1 hour and 50 minutes. Viking arranged assistance to get us to connecting flight rather than changing our flights. Any suggestions?
So this is a great question. I just actually answered this with a client yesterday. And very interesting to know that Viking is putting Viking representatives in the airport inside the secure area to meet people at their flights and take them for those guests that have tight connections. It's something that is new, that they've introduced to overcome situations just like this. I mean, I will tell you, Cecilia, I think that an hour and 50 minutes is just shy of what I would typically recommend a guest have in London. So I think that having that Viking arranged assistance from one gate to the other will help you make your connecting flight without much problem. But we do like to have at least 2 hours, 2.5 hours in London. So I think that's why they introduced that. But keep in mind, depending on when you're leaving, those flights, and we're seeing this a lot, the flights are changing every day. We're seeing, connection times getting, more, longer based on flight changes to the schedule. So keep an eye on your schedule because it could get longer, it could get shorter. I would say that, the reason they provided you assistance is because you're just within that window where it is a little bit tight. I think that, we're seeing difficulty getting people flights from different cities and getting connection times longer. So it is very proactive of Viking to introduce this service, which probably costs them a lot of money, but doesn't cost you anything to get you from one flight to the other. And I think in your specific situation with an hour, 50 minutes and that assistance, you will have a comfortable connection time. So
very nice. Thank you for that answer. And Sharon says, if you go on an included tour and you'd like to stay in a location a little bit longer, is it possible to leave the tour and get a taxi back to the ship?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you get off the ship, you can ask for a little card that has the ship's address on it, or it's going to be in the daily. And I tell people to take pictures of it with their smartphone, the location of where the ship is. But yes, you can definitely go on the included tour, leave the tour, and just make your way back to the ship. You just want to be sure that you make yourself aware of what time the ship departs. So for ocean sailings, for instance, the departure time might be 5 p.m., but you need to be on board no later than 4 p.m. That time is posted as you're getting off the ship. It tells you what time you need to be back on board. And you're going to want to keep that in mind so that you make sure that you're back on board in plenty of time so that you don't miss the ship. So I would highly encourage you to go off and explore on your own, but I would definitely encourage you to make sure you give yourself plenty of time to get back before that deadline.
And I know with the river cruises, which is really great, especially the Christmas markets or whatnot, and even repeaters, they'll bring you to the tour will go to like a center part of the city, and they'll say, well, you do your tour, and they'll say, well, there'll be buses running back and forth even till like 11 o'clock that night or what have you. And if you can spend as much time, you can have dinner and catch this provided transportation A lot of times it was a Viking bus, and you can go back at your leisure, right?
Yeah, or I mean, like for instance, in Regensburg and Passau, you know exactly where the ship is located. You can walk back to the ship after the tour and make your way back. So every port is a little bit different, but yes, absolutely, there's the opportunity to go off and explore on your own.
Yes, Sharon. So that's what jumped in my mind is a lot of times you don't need to pay for the taxi. You just go back to the central spot, get on a Viking bus. It's there they'll tell you all the details if it is or isn't provided, and you can just get on that bus and it'll take you right back to the ship during that period of time. So it's great.
Yeah.
All right. And Stuart wants to know when will 2026 ocean cruises be available for booking?
Stuart, there's not an announcement yet as to when they'll be available, but I'm certain that we'll see more itineraries introduced for the end of 2025, probably by April of next year. Again, I think for Viking, they're looking for sell-through on this, a certain percentage of sell-through on their current itineraries before they introduce more. But typically, that's when we see the next window would be sometime in April.
And Kathy said, thank you about the Iceland question. She appreciates that. She'd heard different things. And Tammy said, is this a good time to travel to Holland, Belgium River cruise, April 2024? She's wondering if that's a good time of year in your mind.
It is if you want to see the tulips. It can be unpredictable weather-wise as far as like rain, things like that. But it is a really great time to see, the tulips. And it is, in my opinion, I mean, April is a great time to be on the river, definitely. So I don't think that there's any caveat to that, except that the weather can sometimes be a little bit unpredictable in April.
Right, and Pat Murphy says, how many days before an ocean cruise can we view, not book just yet, but view the excursions with prices?
Yeah, so usually you're going to see them open in the My Viking Journey portal when the owner suite opens, which I believe is 120 days prior to departure. You'll see them in the portal, but not be able to book them until your designated time. So, that's when you should be able to see them. And
Mary Beth, who you talked about earlier, right? She says she loves these chats. The last one prompted her to take a look at her flights and found a much better flight home from Bergen at 10:40 a.m. versus 6:05, which is way too early for me. And she says the Cologne has the best markets.
Yeah, and Mary Beth is right. And Cologne does have really great Christmas markets, and it is, of course, on the Rhine.
Let's see here. We're getting towards the end of our questions. How come some people have different deadlines for final payment for their cruise? How can I get it delayed? And that is a good question. You see a lot on the groups.
Yeah. So, I mean, guests have different deadlines for final payment for two different reasons. One is Viking has what we call a promotional final payment date. So when we, in April of this year, the final payment date for 2024 may have been July of this year. And for 2025, it may have been December of this year. So that's how they do it. When you look at the brochure that you get in the mail or on the online on the web, on their page, they're going to have a promotional final payment date. That date is the same for everyone. It cannot be changed. So the only way to change the final payment date, after I just said it cannot be changed, the only way to have a later final payment date is if you have a second booking with Viking. They will consider pushing back the final payment date on the second booking that you make with them because you have an existing booking that's not yet left or not yet departed. The only other way to get that date pushed back is to book on board. If you're on the ocean cruise, you have the opportunity to book on board the ship. They will push your final payment date back to 6 months prior. It's a benefit for booking on board the ship. So that's why the final payment dates differ. If you don't meet those two criteria, if you don't have another existing booking or you're not booking on board, the final payment date cannot be pushed back for any reason.
Thank you, Michael. I know I'm putting you to work here with these questions, and you're doing a fine job, by the way. I'm always impressed. And Brian, remember we talked about earlier about he was upset about the price dropping. You talked about rebooking if he wasn't in penalty. He says we're 10 months out, but we would lose our insurance. They said, thanks for your answer.
Yeah. Okay, Brian. So I do understand about the insurance, and that is a really good point. It is, I would just say this and it is a vague answer. It is a very good reason to work with a travel agent. We would help you find a solution in that sense. And in order to work around the problem that you have, you could revise the booking to a different date. to take advantage of the special offer. But there are a couple of different ways to accomplish that once you're outside of final payment. But it is a problem that my clients typically, as I said, or John mentioned, 90% of the time we're selling third-party insurance to our guests that is easily movable. It's not tied to that specific reservation. So it is, a benefit to working with an independent policy than what the cruise line offers. But I do understand the challenge, and in the future, I would recommend working with a qualified agent, one that you trust, and they would be able to help you navigate that situation so that it could be, the best of both worlds for you. But I do understand in this situation, you're tied to not being able to move the booking because you have the cruise line's insurance.
Okay, so the cruise line, it's the cancellation insurance, so he couldn't cancel because it's tied to that?
You can't cancel because the insurance is non-refundable through them. So
I got you.
So that's the challenge, and I understand, and I appreciate him coming back and sharing that detail. Again, I do think that it's something that we could help you navigate in the future. But let me just say this to you: the earlier you book, the better you have the chance of getting what you wanted. Typically the savings is not huge on these promotions that they have. So there is a trade-off, and I understand your frustration. And I wish that I was able to help you resolve that to your satisfaction. But I do appreciate you coming back and sharing the specifics about your situation.
Thanks. And thanks, Brian, for appreciate the question. And we're all learning. And that's what's great about this is we learn. Michael's dealing with this stuff on a daily basis. And because of the volume and the details he works at every day with his team. So Tammy's asking about, she's on the Holland, Belgium cruise. She has no excursions offered yet. Do you know the reason why a delay might be available?
Yeah, there is a known delay in river product shore excursions not being loaded yet. I'm not really sure what the reason is, but for many of our guests, they're experiencing the same thing. I do suspect that you will see them loaded into the system in the next couple of weeks.
Right. And Greg is asking, thanks, Greg, for your question. It seems Explorer suites swell out very fast. How would one know when a cruise is being announced, and how soon after do those suites typically book? Real fast, right?
Yeah, they do book pretty fast, right? The river product only has 2. The ocean products, I think, have, I want to say, a dozen. So, they do sell pretty quickly. And, I think the best way I'm never gonna pass up the opportunity to sell an agent's services or my services to you, Greg. But working with a qualified agent, we would make sure that when the itineraries open up for sale. So, Viking they do a good job of making sure they send out emails when new itineraries are available.
Yeah, I can hear you say, if you work with me, I'll take care of you.
Yeah, if you work with me, I'll find that Explorer suite for you. But we do that with our guests that are looking for verandas. It's not really something that is specific to that category, although I can understand the sense of urgency. I have a guest that only sells in the owner suite, so when the itineraries open up, we have to hold the owner suite for them right away. And of course, there's only one of those, so it's something that we deal with every day.
Right. And David is asking about any word on the Viking is doing about Iceland. And I'm not really sure what he's talking about. So if you're aware, you can enlighten us.
Yeah, I mean, there's no direction yet on that, David, because this is really not the season for travel to Iceland. So I do understand that the situation there has calmed down a lot, but no changes. We've not seen any lines make any changes at this point for Iceland. Wow.
I tell you what, you have answered so many great questions, Michael. We really appreciate it. We've been running you through your paces here, and I'm excited about we've got 34 entries for the prize package. So before we actually do the drawing here, can you tell everybody what the prize package was going to be? It's this time.
Yeah, so it's a travel pack that we have for you, so to make your trip more comfortable. So with just some great items to have with you when you travel, and the winner will receive the package within a week to 10 days from today's live stream.
Right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Now I'm going to try to put this full screen here if I can. Let's see if I can do it that way. Look at that. I'm learning things here. And I'm going to go up here, and we're going to hit this drawing. Look at that. So many entries. So Saza is our winner.
Congratulations, Saza. That's exciting.
Yeah. So all you have to do, Saza, as I'm going to go down here, is you have to email me at john@cruiseaddicts.com. And once I have your information, I can get your information, and we can pass it along to Michael and his team, and we can go from there. But we're super excited. We really appreciate you all taking the time to make this entries and sticking around for this long. So many people, you can see that all these people, Michael, will stay with us the whole time. We had amazing numbers today in this live stream. And thank you all to the people who will be watching this in the future. We really, really appreciate it. Let's see some comments still popping up here.
Yeah, I can't really see that question very well. So.
Yeah, it says she was refusing to do a COVID booster. I don't think you need a COVID booster, do you?
No.
Yeah, so Christopher, we'll go to this because I think it's important here, Michael. I know. So Christopher, thanks for asking the question. She says his wife refused to get a COVID booster. We have an ocean cruise booked for next September. If she gets a COVID again, can I take my girl? Oh. So they got me put on that one.
Yeah.
So, wow. Michael, I tell you what, we had fun.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Let's see. And so, well, everybody, we really appreciate y'all. Congratulations to the prize winner. That's so cool, Saza. And we'll see you again in the future. And happy cruising wherever you are. So we'll see you then. And I'm going to get this. We're going to end this right here. Let's see here. Thank you again.
Thanks.